Today, we're going to talk about how to move past your trauma. In particular, how to accept your situation. Because what we really want to do here is be connected to the present. We really want to move on with our lives. And the best way to do that is simply by letting go what is currently occupying our mind. There's two things that we really have to reconnect with ourselves and get in sense of reality. And the first thing is that there's something called God's will, right? God has a will. And this is obviously if you believe in God, which I'm assuming that you do. So God has a will and we have choices. So in speaking about God's will, his will is an everlasting attribute, meaning it does not begin and it does not end and it does not change. And his will in itself is what determines what is going on with your specific life. And so with it, God wills events to happen or not happen, how they will happen, and the way that they will happen. And so some examples of this, which is true, right? Your parents. You did not choose your parents. You did not choose your siblings. You did not choose your height, the color, your gender, your culture, what time, what era you were born in, and what location, if you were born in America versus if you were born in Saudi Arabia, or if you were born in South America. These are all factors that we did not have a choice in. And what the intellect, when someone is thinking about it, like you're having these traumatic experiences, we usually start and reflect like, this even happened to me? How could I prevented this? But all of these questions in itself, they come back to the question of into this situation. And a lot of it comes to the fact that you didn't choose your parents and you didn't choose your siblings. And all of these factors, what you did not choose, as a byproduct, they have an effect on you. So going back to this, when somebody thinks or someone is reflecting, I have the parents that I had. And the answer to that is it was God's will. God has internally willed, and He chosen your parents for you. He has chosen your siblings for you. He has chosen your height for you, or He has willed those things for you. So we internally know that we don't have power. There's a lot of things that has happened to us that it was just completely and out of control. But then the sound mind would think, okay, true to some degree, but to some degree, I have choices and I also have ability. And that's 100% true because no one forces you to do anything. And no one forces you to, you don't want to speak. No one forces you to walk when you don't want to walk, right? If you want to do something, you go ahead and do it. And so we have ability and we have choices, but our choices are not, we can't do whatever we want, whenever we want, however we want. We are bounded. But where do our choices come from? Where do our decisions come from? Because of our internal and individualistic desires, our visions, our hopes and dreams. And these can also be things of like money or wanting safety or wanting love. Because of these internal desires, we act. And these are the foundations of why we make choices. So, how does God's will also apply to this? Because God's will is what allowed you to execute on those choices. So everything is what I'm trying to say here is everything, even as I'm currently talking right now, even as you are hearing, even if because you are here, everything we are bounded by God's will. It happened because of God's will. So there could be a situation like I had, could have been cut off. Like in a storm, my internet could have lost, and we would have not been able to have this meeting right now. And that would have been by God's will. Some people did not show up to this meeting. They probably got busy, or they slept, or they forgot about it. That was by God's will. So when it comes to accepting your situation, what we're really trying to say and what I'm really trying to point out is that um, it really comes down to accepting God's will. And so now we want to talk about how do situations really manifest. So God's ultimate, everlasting will, right? This is predestination. So there are things in our lives that will happen regardless of what you do. Okay. We're talking about, for example, as an everlasting, this is all predestined. We have absolutely no choice in who our parents were. There could be some things in our life, current lives, that are predestined. For example, a car accident, me being in a car accident, regardless of what I wanted to happen or not happen, this would have hit me. Whether it was my choice or not my choice, some type of pain would have happened to me. And so there are tests and situations that have been eternally willed by God that will happen. Also, don't also think it was just going to be bad things, also good things, such as getting that job, getting that finance, your financial levels, your financial status, your health, 100% your health, right? This has been eternally willed by God to happen for you to have. So don't think or don't only hyperfixate on the negatives that happen to you, but also look at the good that has happened to you. Everything has been willed by God. So no matter what we do or don't do, some of these are everlasting wills, they will happen, right? But then there's also, so this is the ultimate will. This is the everlasting will. But then there are situations. It's called in Arabic the like hanging will. Basically, it's the unwritten will. So also there will be situations in your life that happen because we chose these specific actions, because we had these specific intentions, right? So think of the law and the laws of an effect. If I pour water by my choice on my laptop will be destroyed, right? This is clearly, I did this myself. I did this by myself, right? So there are also situations that because of our choices, because of our, again, our desires, our hopes and safety and desire for love, we make choices. And these choices in themselves happen, or they manifest things to happen in our life. And this manifestation is also happened because of God's will. So how do we know in our situation? Did this particular situation happen to me because of God's ultimate will, or did I choose this? And the answer is, we really don't know. Some are 100%. Okay, here, yes. We really don't know. How do we not know? Because when we are making choices, we are only making choices by what we know. And most of our choices come from variables that came from our lives. The parents that you had, the knowledge that you had, the childhood that you had, all of these things, these three variables that I'm just talking about, you had absolutely no choice in. But because of your lived experience, because of the parents that you had, because of the siblings that you had, because of the health that you had, they have formed an experience in you, and you have some particular knowledge that you executed on. The knowledge that you did not have, the knowledge you did have, all of it was simply by some variables that you did not choose. So even when making these choices, we were basically just doing the best that we can do. And we don't know. So when we make choices, a lot of them have been manifested from our childhood because of our desires and dreams and hope and safety, like we said before. I don't know. And these things were God's ultimate will. While we did have some of these choices, a lot of them were predestined. Like, I hope this is making sense. Our personality in itself was built by our environment. We did not, growing up, let's say, not choose our environment, but because of that, it shaped us who we are. And so we are doing the best that we can with the information and environment that we knew, right? So even that in itself, because of the information, because of the situation that we were put in, we were doing the best that we could. We were doing the best that we could in any way, shape, way, or form. But what do we know? We know that it was all of it. Everything that has happened to us is by the will of God, meaning He allowed things to happen. Even some of our thoughts, our desires, they were put in us they were allowed to manifest by God's will. Our choices, where we come in, is what do I want to listen to? And we made a choice what we wanted to listen to, and God allowed us to make that choice, and then so we made that choice. So it's very hard to figure out, because actually it's impossible to figure out. It's impossible to try to comprehend this situation, because what you get into these loops of asking me, oh, if this didn't happen, then this would have never happened. And if I didn't have these parents, then the situation would have never happened. If I didn't marry this person, then this would have never happened. Or like first, and how do I act upon this? How do I act? How do I go on in life? Where my choices start or where my choices end. Like, what I'm trying to say is these loops are not helpful. And the reason why, if you try to follow these thoughts, you will be stuck, because what you're trying to do is that you're trying to comprehend something. You're trying to comprehend you're limitless, what you are limited by something that is not limited. So you will never be able to comprehend this situation, this concept. So God's will cannot be comprehended, right? Because God's attributes are unimaginable and they're unlimited. They are not bounded by time. They are not bounded by situations. They don't come in sequence. He knows everything without a beginning, without an end. He knows everybody's situation at the same time, right? It's not like how we think, where it's just like one thought at a time. We have one knowledge at a time. We build on our knowledge. That's not how God's knowledge. And that's not God's will, and that's not any of God's attributes. But we, as limited creations, we don't know how to it's not know how. We simply don't have the capacity and capability of understanding God's will or any of his attributes. What I'm saying here is don't follow these loops because this is a trick. What you do know is that what happens in your current situation is it's working together. Let's say that you're working together with your own personal choices and God's will. And that's how things manifest. So why do we make most of our choices? Again, most of our choices come from our childhood, from what we learned growing up, from the information that we consumed, right? If I did not have a particular person in my childhood, if I didn't have specific situations in my childhood, I would not be this particular person. If I was born in America, if I had different people, 100%, I would be a different person. If I grew up with a lot of money, I would not have a different mindset about money, right? But what I'm trying to say is that we don't have these things. We don't have to acquire what you want, and God wills and allows it to happen. So you focus on what you can control and you focus on what you can do. And a lot of this happens too with accepting the fact that you really can't change your past and you really can't change and you cannot overcome God's will. You can't even fight it. You're 100% when you do this lesson, I really want you to go home and reflect coming up of really thinking about this concept. Because when you truly submit to this principle, then accepting your situation. Because you can't overcome, you can't. This is why we submit. By submitting to our situation, what you're basically saying is that you submit to God's will. And once you submit to God's will and actually understand that you are really bounded, then it becomes easier to do so. It becomes easier to accept your situation. And this is something that you have to build with yourself. Do you believe in God's will? Is this a concept that you're willing to submit to? And this is a question that you have to answer with yourself. And so I can make this concept comprehend in your heart and in your body. However, I'm true, right? Everything that I'm currently saying is true because, again, you did not have choices and you can't even overcome the particular situation that you are in if you did not will it. You can't open doors that will not be opened. You just can't. Okay, I'm going to go into how to cope with what happened. A principle that we really have to understand is that we are not above harm will hit us. And the purpose of life is not to prevent harm. We will be hurt. Waking up, like life in itself, it can be a painful experience. Even before you wake up, I don't know if you guys experience this, but even when you first wake up, you are completely hit with negative thoughts before you are 100% conscious. I hear myself before I wake up saying, wake up, what's the purpose of waking up? Like, I don't have anything to do. Before I'm 100% conscious, before my eyes are even awake. So this in itself, these thoughts are even harm. And so the purpose of life is not to prevent harm, okay? Be tested. And the test doesn't necessarily matter what happens to you. What really matters is how you react to it and how you can overcome it. You really want to ask your question, are you trying to prevent harm from coming you? Is this why you're overthinking? Is this why you can't sit still? Is this why you're, oh my God. Okay, 10-minute timer. Okay with you guys, I would like to just hop on the same call because we're not done. Yeah, you guys know in 1 more minute we can have a same call. So going back to this concept, that life, the purpose of not to think that harm will not hit you. Once you accept this principle and saying, no, it's okay that I'm being hit, it's okay that harm is hitting me, it's okay that things are not being perfect, you're seeing a more realistic sense of reality. And that sense of reality will help you situation even more. Sometimes it's not that the harm is hitting us, it's that our perception of what is supposed to happen to us. It was not supposed to happen. But this is a reality, it did happen. So that gap of it's not supposed to happen, that standard of it's not supposed to happen, is what's really causing a lot of our depression and anxiety and overthinking. But once you accept the fact that I will get hit, and if something hits me, it's okay. But I'm also protected a lot of times. I'm actually more protected and I'm actually more provided safety than I am being hit. And so once you are part of reality, now your perspective changes about how do you move on with your life, about the principles, what's important, what's not important. Now you're not seeking perfection, but rather seeking character growth and resilience. Another part is that submitting again to the fact that whatever happened to you and the harm that hit you was never meant to miss you. And the good that has happened to you, it was never meant to miss you. And if the whole world will come together and to harm you, and God did not will it for it to happen, it will not happen. And so harm in itself, it happened because of God's will. So again, going back to the principle of submitting to the fact that you really are powerless, and that's okay. Also, another part of submission is realizing that God is the owner of everything. You didn't pay for your body. Your wealth, this is a big trap. I thought that hard effort, because I worked so hard, I deserved wealth. My hard work is what made me wealthy. And that's not true. And that has been a really humbling experience for me the past 3 years. So even itself, people say if you work hard, you'll become wealthy. That's not true. That's not necessarily true. And even your property, your house, what you want, everything in itself, God is the owner because God created it. Everything was created by God. So he is the owner of everything. I own my laptop. I have the right to do with my laptop whatever I want. I can break it in half if I want. Why would I do that? I don't know. But I can't do that. And nobody can tell me anything. And this comes in part of submission and being humble, not having this particular ego. Again, a lot of our anger comes from ego. But again, when we reflect that I did not pay for my body, I did not pay for my children. My children are not mine. Whether I like it or not, they came, if they're your mother, they came from your body, but that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have ownership over them. Everything that you have is a borrowed material, and your job is to make sure that it is being utilized well. Okay. Something was to happen to you. I always used to be afraid of this. The context, I grew up in a war zone. So I always had this fear of like falling off. And it was just like, how do I cope with this? How do I, like, it's my limb, it's my right arm, it's my left leg. How do I move on with this? And this is how I got about it. It's just like you will one day, your body, everything from head to toe will be underground. Another part is that if it's will to happen for you, it will happen for you. And third is that you will be okay even if you lost some limbs. You'll be okay if you walk around with one leg. You still have other legs. You're still alive. Completely understanding these two concepts and humbling yourself and even creating a sense of safety in your worst case scenario brings some type of comfort in your heart because you're letting your soul basically know that you're going to be okay. And another part of this is that you want to focus or you want to look at the good. There's a lot of trauma, even in that particular area, even if you're looking at a particular person, look at the good that they have done. Your reality is what you focus on. So focus on the good. You are blessed in so many ways. So don't have this hard heart. Don't have this kind of always thinking that your life is terrible, your life is miserable, because it's not. You're currently being provided for. You're currently being protected. You're currently being looked after as we are in this session. The reason your heart can stop at any moment, but it's currently beating because God allowed it to beat. But one day it won't. Heart attacks happen. Well, yes, some people can 100% go after and like happen faster through poor diet, poor exercise. But some people who are completely 100% healthy out of nowhere their heart can stop beating. So look at the good. Don't think that you are not safe in this current moment because you are safe and you are provided for and you do have mercy upon you in this particular situation right now. That in your daily life, really think about it and think about your eyes even working and what that actually requires and how life would simply be different if your eyes did not work. Being grateful for what you currently have will also help you overcome the trauma and your past and this magnifying thinking that you only lived terrible life, which is not necessarily true, or that this particular situation so traumatic for you. When I say look at the good, you are ready. Sometimes you're just not ready to accept that, and that's okay. But when you start doing that, when you start looking at the good, it brings like a new level of peace within you. Again, when you are ready. And sometimes some people are forcing themselves to look at the good when sometimes they just need to actually grieve the past. And so we'll talk about that later, slides. So I saw a particular question, so I want to answer those questions at the end. But if we can hop on the same Zoom call, uh, okay. I thought I paid for Zoom, but it looks like I did not do that. So if we can hop on over there, I would actually appreciate it. Okay, so let us move on. Another part of this is that another part of overcoming your trauma is, especially if you are really blaming yourself for everything, is to forgive yourself. So you did not know what you did not know. You acted on what you knew best. You have to give yourself this type of mercy because it's true. You were doing the best that you could possibly do. So you were acting in your best interest based on what you knew. And so because you did not know what was going to happen and what happened, you did not know what your actions would manifest, it's okay. You have to have this type of mercy with yourself. You have to be kind to yourself. And again, this goes back to something, even if you wanted to change something, a lot of things happen because of, again, your parents, your childhood, some of the variables that you yourself could not even control. So if you wanted to change something, you would have to completely change your things that was not your choice. Even if the knowledge that you had, the information that you had, sometimes you think, oh, if I acted on this, if I knew better. Well, you didn't know any better, and you acted on it because you thought that was the best thing that could have happened for you. Also, you're acting on it basically based on your desires or hopes and dreams, and that's okay. So we don't want to regret what happened. We don't want to regret what happened. We just want to move on with what happened. If there are lessons to be learned, 100% take those lessons. Another part of it, especially if you're the victim, and again, when you are ready, when you have coped with what happened and are ready to let go of these feelings, forgiving others is another principle that you might have to implement on because what they do not know. They were acting on their own interests, and they themselves can be blind to their own actions. I talk to some people, if you talk to manipulators or some people who just want to have their last word, sometimes I look and reflect, do you actually know what you're doing? Why are you not changing? Why do you not want to work with me? Why are you not wanting to make sure that we live in this environment where it's peaceful? But because of whether it's either ego or they want them to have the last word or they're simply blind to what they're doing, they are acting on that blindness. And so what I'm trying to say is that when you forgive other people, even if they are not worthy of being forgiven, you do this for your own sake. You do this for yourself because there's, again, a connection between the thoughts that you're having and the emotions that they bring about. So when you stop thinking about people, maybe forgiveness is not even what you want, maybe just forgetting about them. Don't, in your mind, thinking they don't even exist. That's fine. You are clearing up your thoughts about them, making your heart feel better. So you are doing this for yourself. When you forgive other people, you're not forgiving them because they deserve forgiveness or that you're a good person if you forgive them. The reason why you would forgive them is so that your heart is cleansed and you are able to live with peace. And so if you did something that you feel guilty about, or if someone did something to you that, well, you really are a victim, you ask for forgiveness. You can ask that person to forgive you. Or if you did something that you really are guilty about, ask God to forgive you. But if there is a lesson and it is something that you did, make sure that you never do it again. Again, we want to take lessons and we want to build up our character and not be stuck. There's a lot of lessons that need to be learned. And learn those lessons and then just forget about it. And then you're done. So there's a coping in Islam. There's this coping that we usually say that what we say is that it's a gate from the gates of paradise, which it means what we say in Arabic is la hawla. And what this means is that we cannot move from one situation to another. We don't have the power to do that. We don't have the strength to do that, except by the help and the will of God. There is no power to be obedient to except by God, and there's no situation to stop sinning except by God. Whatever has happened to you was by the will of God. and what did not happen to you was by the will of God. So even if you want to move from your particular situation, the power, and this does not necessarily mean from your traumatic experience, but even your current situation, anything, there is no power to stop. There's no power that will allow it to happen except by God's power. No strength. You don't have the strength. It's by God's strength that the strength for it to happen. So what this means and so what this does to the heart is that it makes the heart and the soul surrender and submit to God's will. And this embodies complete submission and trusting one's affairs, your particular affairs, your situations, your obedience, your goals, and your actions, and your hopes and your dreams to God. If I have a dream of building this empire, I know that I would need the power and the strength to God to allow me to do that. So once one acknowledges that there is no creator other than God and none can turn back on his command, and that the person is really powerless in his own affairs. And I want you again to think and reflect about your situation. And so, what does this effect have on the person? It helps you, and this is by a scholar, he says it helps accomplish difficult work. It bears the hardship. You enter upon kings and those that you fear and undergo a dreadful experience. So if you are afraid of the people, this will help you overcome the fear of people because you know that the people cannot harm you except by God's will and they cannot benefit you except by God's will. If you have a hard time accomplishing a task, it will make it easier for you because it will lessen the burden and the fear of that task. Again, the hardships. When somebody with difficult words or you had a situation that truly you were powerless in the situation and that this was God's will. And this is effective, again, in removing sadness, sickness, and anxiety. And it helps in building that trust by truly entrusting your matters to God. And it helps you recognize, again, your own powerlessness, and realizing that only God can bring about the change from one state to another. And this is either emotional, physical, financial, social. It does not matter. What you desire, it cannot happen without God's will. And so if you also desire something, this is also a great opportunity to actually talk to God and figure out how do I communicate with him and actually have an open heart, whether it's admitting the faults or saying, I just don't understand how to cope with the situation, or even asking, I want X, Y, and Z. Can you please give it to me? So right here in this particular situation, you no longer fear and you no longer beg people, but you go back to the source. It really is food for the heart. And when thoughts are too much, when you can't stop thinking, resort to this. It will stop the overthinking, and it is a protection. So if you don't know how to say in Arabic, literally just saying, there is no power. I can't move from this one situation. I don't have the power and the strength of moving from this situation except by the help and the will of God. Something around those lines that befit your language and helps you calm the heart, because that's what we really want to focus on. So I know we mostly talked about spirituality for this section, but then overcoming trauma is really a physical, mental, and a spiritual. It's a holistic approach, right? So physically, when you are having a trauma, when you are experiencing a traumatic event, mentally, you need to bring yourself to the present. And the way that you can do that is somatics. So that can look like body tapping or stretching or deep breathing, walking in nature. Bringing yourself to the present moment lets your mind and soul know that you are no longer in that traumatic space. It really brings down the effect that the thoughts have on you. Mentally, the challenge here is to stop replaying the past. Some of these are really intrusive thoughts, and you can't control that the thoughts come about, but what you can control is how to overcome those thoughts. You can choose to not listen to them. And the one way you can do that is by building affirmations to stop overthinking. So, for example, if you are thinking about a traumatic event that has happened to you, simply saying, challenging those thoughts and talking back to them and saying, it is what it is. What happened? It's okay. These things in itself, as you keep saying them, repeating them a lot of times, they will calm the heart and they will stop those thoughts in their tracks. Also saying maybe there's goodness in it. We have the Arabic term, there's khair. There's goodness in what has happened to me. Have to have this optimistic thought, regardless of what has happened to you. And spiritually, you can repeat these phrases. So, whatever God will to be shall be, whatever God did not will to be shall never be. There is no power or might without the will of God. And another one is, to God we belong, and to God we will return. And saying these not just once, but hundreds of times, because your traumatic thoughts don't just happen once and then they're stuck and they don't happen ever again. They keep coming back, and your job, every time it comes back, is to diffuse those thoughts. Something that I've not mentioned here is that to make sure that you don't, when these thoughts come, don't negate, don't cope in a way that just stops the thoughts. So basically what that means is if these thoughts come, somebody usually goes to TV so they don't hear themselves. We don't want that. Somebody might smoke a cigarette. Some people might go to alcohol. When these thoughts come, you have to fight them with thoughts. You can't use any other type of coping mechanism. Or you can't say, oh, let me just watch after the show, then I'll go figure myself out. That's not what happens. It really has to happen in the moment. So there is no power. By saying these, spiritually repeating these phrases multiple times, your heart becomes open. It opens itself to this situation and accepts it. It's like your heart is being calm. When I had my biggest traumatic experience, or I was literally having panic attacks in the middle of the night, I would say the second bullet point at least 1,000 times. And this would take only an hour. So when I would go on a nature walk and these thoughts would come, I would just say it. I wouldn't watch TV. I wouldn't check emails. I wouldn't listen to podcasts. It would just be my thoughts. And this particular phrase, these particular attributes that fight these thoughts, that overcome these thoughts, that calm my heart and calm my soul. And so as you do this, your focus needs to be on the heart. There is this pure, calm, like peacefulness that you will feel when you think about this, when you accept your situation. This is how you know you're on the right path. Your heart will feel so light. Your body will feel light. You'll be so much happier. Once this happens, know that you are on the right path. So playing back the trauma, playing back these thoughts and letting them manifest into the heart and into the body, this is what gives you the panic attacks. This is what gives you the shivers. This is what keeps you unstable and keep moving. Or on the other part, keeps you really sad and drains your energy and keeps you stuck in bed, isolated, watching TV. Look back at your thoughts. Look back at what you're thinking. And don't just accept them as true, because they're not true. Your job in overcoming anxiety and depression, your job in overcoming overthinking is to fight those thoughts. That's where it starts and that's where it ends. And you have power. Anxiety and depression and whatever has happened to you does not go away simply by time. It goes away by time and effort. You have to put in the effort. You are not powerless. You have you have control over your tongue. Your body is under your control, right? And so keep telling it to yourself that you are in control, because you are in control. And sometimes what we really need is to grieve. And that in itself is okay. To sit in silence and to let it all come out. Again, no social media, no noise, no TV, don't even talk to people. Just sit in silence. And crying in itself, it releases trauma. It releases pent-up energy. And it's okay, again, to be sad and sit with the sadness. A lot of people, what they do is that they avoid the sadness and they avoid crying because they think that's not who they're supposed to be. That's not what's supposed to happen. And that's just not true. It's okay to grieve. Again, feel the emotions, but do not avoid through TV, social media, work, gossip, talking to people. So that's really important. Again, I want you to go back and think about what I said. Is this really true? And then apply it to your particular situation. And this is not going to happen after the session or after you hear this once. You'll be free from what has happened to you. That's not true. It will happen over and over again. And your job is to make sure that every time it happens, you are coping with it properly. You are putting the effort in overcoming those particular thoughts and releasing the trauma from your body, from your mind, and from your heart. I don't expect you to heal. I don't expect people to heal in one day. So keep replaying it, keep thinking, and keep fighting for yourself and keep fighting for your own identity, because that is the only way that you can overcome everything. Simply by saying, I have the power, I have the control, and choosing to not listen to those words, choosing to not listen to those thoughts and detaching yourself from those thoughts. That's where it all begins.